Rangers 1, St Mirren 0. Thanks to our match sponsor today, Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, and to our match ball sponsor, G4 Claims.
Yeah, I've done a few live shows with Heart and Hand, Clive. They're great boys, massive fans of the club, and they'll be delighted that they get a wee plug.
Hey, I've been on it too.
Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, a special episode for us as we celebrate our 10th anniversary. Yes, Heart and Hand kicked off back in August 2010. Rangers were the champions. Rangers would go on to retain the championship. Bit of a barren spell since then, if we're being honest, but we hope we've managed to keep you entertained throughout the years. Joining me to discuss the match, our match day sponsorship, which you heard at the beginning there, are first of all Mr. Colin McMillan.
Good evening, David. How you doing?
And Mr. Adam Thornton.
Hello, David.
Right, lads, do you want to hear something cool?
Yes.
Always.
Stephen, obviously the headlines will be about Alfredo today. I thought wonderful performance from him. He did get the man of the match despite what you might have heard. And I just validated your selection of him today.
Well, he certainly deserved man of the match. He definitely gets my vote. I thought his all-round game was good. I thought his focus was really strong, and you know, when you've got that talent and you approach the game in the right way, your numbers are going to come, and he gets another assist. That's 2 for the season and 2 goals. But I thought his all-round play and performance deserved them numbers.
Thank you. So that was only me talking to Steven Gerrard after the game yesterday. Just, you know, you couldn't see it, but I was dead cool. I was, you know, almost slouched next to him. I was in no way standing ramrod straight, terrified of. They shouldn't let you do an interview, a press thing, after you've watched the gaffer talk to Charles Patterson of Sky Sports, because it's like watching a murder. It really is. It's just a terrifying process. But I thought it was a fair question. Would you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you were ramrod straight. I expected nothing else of you.
No, in other words, I'm too fearful for that sort of unpleasantness, Adam.
I'm looking forward to seeing how your relationship blossoms over the season, because he's going to get to know you, obviously. I'm sure he'll appreciate the questioning, and this could be the start of something great. So I'm looking forward to seeing it move. I'm
very respectful. I'm a Scottish Presbyterian, and when dealing with the Rangers manager, one must show a certain level of respect. But no, it was, you know, it's a good opportunity to us. As you may know, we're in the press area now. We try and ask about football, which is, it's crazy. One of the journalists, I kid you not, actually did say to Stephen, has there been any recent movement on Alfredo? And he looked at him, you know, that Gerrard look, and went, what, since the press conference yesterday? And the guy went, yeah, and knew it. And he went, no. You know, as much as, of course not, don't be stupid, it's Saturday. So, yeah, it didn't go down well. Adam?
I thought it was really funny, David, when you asked, what game was it? The question about more goals and assists being spread throughout the team. And he kind of paused a little bit, and I think he was just digesting the fact he'd been asked an actual question that he could answer about the players or the team, rather than just an absolute sideshow. And his answer was pretty good as well, but it was one of those moments he kind of looked as if, this guy's asking me a real question, I don't quite know how to answer this.
Yeah, it's a revolutionary concept, but it's something we plan to keep doing. If we get an opportunity to talk to Rangers players or officials folks, what we're going to do is ask them about, you know, the football that we all love so much, and about, you know, how the team is doing. I know that might sound mental, but yeah, we were the match day sponsors yesterday, which was really fitting, I think, for 10 years. And you know, I would recommend, incidentally, anyone who's out there thinking of doing it, you don't need to be a massive business. We're not, but we got the opportunity. It was affordable, and obviously with this new, you know, behind closed doors, virtual season ticket, then there's a lot of scope for companies. But, you know, you guys watched, first of all, before we get into the match, you guys watched on RTV. Colin, what was your first experience with the new look RTV like?
I was really, really impressed with it. I expected some teething issues. I expected the worst in some ways in terms of the streaming platform and it holding up, especially with the fact that they opened it up to non-season ticket holders as well. So there was always that fear around the capacity, especially at that $9.99 price point in terms of just how many people would try and watch the game. But I watched it. I didn't have a single bit of buffering. It was great. In terms of the actual content, I think the guests did really well. It was great to hear Niko Katic. It's not, you don't often get to hear a current player in that sort of position talking about how he's doing and that sort of level of depth and given his insight in the game. I felt Neil McCann's probably the best pundit in Scotland in terms of talking about our game, so it's good to hear him in-house. And I think you're getting to hear the good side of Alex Rae as well when he's in-house and he's able to show his bias a little bit better than he can on Premier or BT. And as for the commentary, it's Clive Tildesley, one of the best in the game, and our pal KT. You can't really go wrong with that lineup, can you, David?
Well, no, I don't think so. I was impressed. We mentioned this last week about the lineup that Rangers announced. But Adam, they are obviously aiming for a television quality lineup. We know some of the names that are mentioned for later in the season. I tend to agree with Colin. I think Neil McCann is great. I think just as a pundit, when he sometimes does English games for Sky as a co-com, he's really good. Kevin, we're biased, but our feelings on this. But it did come across like that they weren't just, this'll do, and chucking any old rubbish at us.
Yeah, no, it was really professional. I was really happy with it. I think being able to stream it from the app is a bit of a game changer. I had that streamed through my TV, and I had my TV facing out into the back garden, and I was sitting out in the back garden watching it, which was brilliant. But in terms
very pleasant, yeah,
it was. In terms of the setup, I thought it was good. I liked the kind of half an hour or so at the start just to build up. There's nothing worse than watching and you come on and it's just that crowd noise at the start, that we've had for so long when there's not been anybody presenting or anything. It's just crowd noise and you're waiting and you don't even know if it's working and you're hitting refresh. It just coming on right away and having that 30 minutes at the start and then the bit at the end and tying in the manager interviews and stuff. It did just feel like a Sky type thing, and as Colin said, having Katic there was brilliant because we don't get to hear too much about them in that sense. They'll answer the questions that journalists give them or that Nick gives them in the press conferences, etc. But we don't actually get to hear what were your thoughts on this particular instance in the game or what was this, what was that, because we don't tend to have that kind of relationship with the media up here. In England, they'll obviously have people who will come on the show, or you might get a player that comes on maybe Match of the Day or something every so often, or a player that's just retired. But in terms of Rangers players that have just recently retired, very few and far between that we would get that. So it's really good to see from that side as well, and it just adds a little bit more to the experience. But I thought the full thing was brilliant, and big credit to Rangers TV. I didn't have a single buffer all day. It was perfect all the way through, no complaints at all.
Well, they've set the standard then.
Aye,
so
absolutely.
There's no going back, and even when crowds are in, I think people will understand if it's not quite this level of star and punditry, etc. But they can't go back to what Adam said, which is, the half an hour before kick-off, there's a still image on the screen, and I remember back in the 90s. You'll remember this, Adam, maybe as a youngster, but you might remember Rangers used to have a match day studio, and Bill McFarlane would present, and there'd be guests just for the big screen in Ibrox.
I remember in the corner of where I used to sit in the Govan rear between Govan and the Govan and Broomloan. Is that the one you're talking about? The little corner just underneath the screen? Yeah, I remember that because I used to see the guests and stuff in it. It feels like a million years ago now, but yeah, absolutely. I was quite surprised that it was on the touchline. I guess with the COVID stuff, they kind of need to do everything on the touchline, but it would be interesting to see if there was an opportunity to go into a studio, whether it would be something like that or maybe they'd put something a bit more temporary up.
Well, they have, because where they put the press at the moment, I think the away team are changing in the press box, or the press, the press room, the one that you see the press conferences from normally.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure the away team are actually changing in there at the moment. And as people have noticed, that all teams come on separately at the moment as part of the COVID guidelines. So that's why. So the press are actually in the enclosure at the moment. And they put us right down the front because behind us they're set up. It's like a sort of like a stage with scaffolding that's been set up. So I wonder if they might move them there because it's like a wind tunnel in that corner. Anyone will know there. It was a beautiful day outside, but down there It felt like, a small hurricane was brewing for some reason. I don't know if it all gathers up in there. Maybe our listening meteorologists can help us out with that. So yeah, I think that they might move to that in future. Anyway, I hope that everyone had a good experience with Rangers TV on the first day with it. Hopefully you won't have to go through it for too long, folks. No offence to the people behind RTV who did a great job, but we went back in the stadium. Well, 2 games to talk about this week. One good, one not so good. Quite a different level of opposition, I think it's fair to say. But there's a guy who you cannot keep out of the headlines. You cannot keep out of the mouths of Rangers fans because he does absolutely dominate things, and that is Alfredo Morelos. Lot of criticism for his performance on Thursday night. I didn't think he was good, but I didn't think he was alone in that. I'll hold my hand up and say I was a little surprised to see him start the match yesterday. I thought after Thursday he may be benched and we'd see Cedric Itten come in to start. But he played, 1 assist, 2 goals, meaning he's been involved in all of our goals this season. Adam, I wondered on one of our Patreon shows if perhaps because he's such a focus for the side, and yeah, there's all the media stuff as well, but because he is such an integral part of our team and has been, and also he's got that type of personality that he draws, I wouldn't say he draws attention to himself because that sounds pejorative, I don't mean it like that, but he is a guy who, he's a star, and stars draw your eyes to them, don't they? And Morelos has that. That's why I think he'll go on and have an amazing career, regardless of where it is. But maybe we do tend to overanalyze things like body language and whatnot, because there's always a transfer rumour about him. There's always something going on. And I wonder if perhaps we have been conditioned, perhaps by the press, I don't know, but to maybe overanalyze him. He wasn't good on Thursday night, but I don't think the team were good, and I think the team were up against a side who, in all honesty, are just a better football team than us.
I think it's to do with expectations. I think you place more expectations on your better players or the ones that have went to the well many times. You expect more of them than you maybe do some of the other ones. But I think we're now at the stage with Morelos where everything is so scrutinised by everybody, but more so Rangers fans, that we've seen last week in the Aberdeen game. There was this borderline hysteria about people moaning that Morelos didn't look interested, and it kind of goes the other way, and you have people saying he was doing this and he was doing that and he was so good at this and so good at that, kind of going over the top to defend him the other way, that you've got this almost made up polar opposite that kind of doesn't really exist. And that, as far as I could see, the matter of fact last weekend was he was fine, great to set up the goal, did okay, nowhere near his best, but not anywhere near terrible, really just outside of the goal he was fine, but there was all this hysteria around about him because of the transfer move, etc. And then on Thursday I would say he was poor. I would also agree with your point that the whole team was poor, but I think there are things that you get from Morelos when he's on form that you didn't get on Thursday, and it seemed to me it was purely because of what in his head rather than it being anything to do with the opposition. You didn't really see him chasing down defenders as he did. You didn't see him on the ball too much in terms of trying to rough up opponents and kick their way through them. There wasn't a whole lot of that. He did seem to be playing very within himself in that sense, which was a little bit of a worry. Obviously, he's going to get less of the ball, David, like you said. He was up against Tapsoba, who I'll be surprised if he doesn't go this summer. If he does, we're probably talking 50 million plus, because he is the real deal. But again, it wasn't as if he outclassed Morelos that much that I seen. Anyway, it was more that Morelos didn't really impose himself on him. He didn't really seem to have that extra 5 or 10% to go and commit him. We've seen him do it with defenders that are very, very highly valued at Porto and Feyenoord. They didn't quite seem to look like he was, I don't want to say up for it, because that goes into the whole mental aspect of it. He just seemed to be playing slightly within himself for that reason. On Sunday, I'm the same as you. I thought he was. I was surprised to see him play, absolutely. But I thought he was good. Again, not unplayable, not back to his unplayable best, but I thought he was good. He got in the right position to score those 2 goals. He set up that goal very nicely. I like that work that he does in that inside right channel where he drifts out and either takes a shot or cuts it back. He does that very well, which we've seen with the first goal. And I thought he had a really good game. in that sense. But I was very surprised to see him play. But you can't argue with the manager's decision now.
Colin, if he stays or if he goes, I thought yesterday was a wonderful reminder of what he contributes, but also sets down a marker for the other guys, the guys who've just come in, which is that if he stays, then he's fighting for that shirt. And if he goes, that's what we need from you. Contribute all the time. As Adam says, that's not Alfredo at his best. I think he's a few weeks from his best yet. 2 goals and an assist. He won the match.
Yeah, indeed. And we don't know if he's going to stay or he's going to go. I think it's probably more likely, given in mind we're looking at a transfer window that's going to take us right up into October, that an offer probably will come in and he probably will go, looking at the strikers that we've brought in. But while he's here, we need to play him because we want him in that short window. But he's also one of our most effective players and one of the ones most likely to win games for us. He's also got a really important part to play in the fact that while he is still here, he's able to let these new signings come in and not have the pressure of filling his shirt straight away. Can you imagine if he'd gone already and we had to put it in from the start this week without much training, without really knowing the system and all the pressure that would be on him? Had he not scored the goals like Morelos did, he'd probably be written off as a dud in some quarters already and he'd have pressure built up on him already. We're now in a position where we can start Morelos and we can start to use this 5 sub rule to our advantage, bring these new strikers on, get them used to the system, get them used to the team, and just acclimatise them to it slowly and do the right things with them so that when Morelos does go, it's not a big gaping hole and we're prepared for it and we're ready. So in some ways, Morelos has still got a really important part to play in keeping us going while he's here and also facilitating the move into the first team for these new guys. And it makes perfect sense to keep him in the team. I'm hoping that yesterday was him getting back to where he should be. If his head has been turned or his head's not been right, I want him to get it in the right place because I want him to do well for us while he is here and I want him to get the move that I think he deserves. And I think that will all come down to how he performs in the next couple of weeks as well.
Well, the manager said his head had been turned, so we can't. But for us who are not involved in Rangers, we can only go on that. And literally, the manager said everyone knows Alfredo's had his head turned the last few weeks. He did say yesterday that he'd spoken to Alfredo, but he said he'd spoken to a number of players and let them know that he wasn't happy with what he got out of them on Thursday. But you did see the response yesterday. I thought. Adam, tactically then, we'll have a look first of all at the Bayer Leverkusen match. Now, first things first, I think Kai Havertz is quite good. And
he's okay, isn't he, the old football thing? Yeah,
if the boy sticks in, Christ knows how he missed that one in the first half, right enough. Well, he put it back to the post, I suppose, is the answer. But he's just terrific, and Chelsea are going to sign him, and their fans must be drooling about that. But they're a quality side all over the park. Guys like Sven and Lars Bender, I can't make the joke. 10 years ago, maybe, folks. I can't do it now. But, they're top players. Their careers suggest that. They looked a level above us all over the field. I don't think we were at our best. I don't think we were anywhere near at our best. But even so, I never got the impression that Rangers believed they could turn it round. And I think we played the game as we would have played an away European match, if it had been the first leg, to try and keep the score down, get them back to Ibrox, maybe pinch a goal. I thought that was the lineup. In all honesty, we probably never were turning around a 3-1 again. Well, the evidence suggests we were unlikely to do it anyway. They are a good side, and kind of what you need to aspire to have that ability, the confidence on the ball. And the pace they have up front is insane.
Yeah, I think I seen someone mentioned on Twitter that Havertz reminded them of Kaka and his pomp, and I think that's a brilliant. I hate those comparisons sometimes, but I think that's brilliant. The way that he doesn't even really seem to move very quickly or run very fast, he just seems to drift past you. I think he's an unbelievable talent. He's obviously been someone that I think most people will be aware of since he was like 17. And the fact that he's their captain, I think, speaks volumes. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we've seen with the team selection, Barker coming in was reminiscent of Porto. I keep saying last season, but whatever season we're counting that as now. It was like that. I think we wanted to hit on the break. Not playing Hadji indicates that you're wanting to give up at least a chunk of possession in that kind of offensive third, if you like. So I think you're spot on. I think that's what we tried to do. And if in your heart of hearts you're prioritising 2 wins in the league, as important than a good, courageous showing in Leverkusen. I can't really blame the manager for doing that. I'm sure he wouldn't have done it that way. But you're right, that last goal at Ibrox just killed the tie for us. I think the fact that we were going to need those 3 goals was always going to be a tough ask. I do think it would have been really, really interesting if we'd have managed to get them in a one-off situation, because I would have fancied their chances. It might be a wee bit too early in the season. However, they're only just coming back for pre-season now, I think. If they had already, I guess they're doing this tournament now, which kind of will count as part of their pre-season. But they hadn't played in 6 weeks since the German Cup final. But you wouldn't have seen it from the level of the team. I thought they were brilliant. They just all over the pitch. That's exactly what you would want to aspire to as a kind of, and they're not even top range European team. That's the frightening thing. They're kind of middle to top in terms of that. Their Champions League kind of last 16ish is probably about their limit, I would say. So it's frightening to think of the levels that other teams can go up above them. But they were very, very impressive, and I think it was the golf and class and the golf and finances, I think, pretty much showed on the night. They were quite happy as soon as they got that goal, just kind of playing with us a little bit and just playing a bit of cat and mouse. And it didn't really look like we had the appetite to go gung ho and try and make a game of it.
I remember watching Red Bull last season, who I think are a comparable Red Bull Leipzig, obviously, who are a comparable. Very comparable side. They're kind of at the same level as Leverkusen. Absolutely smack Tottenham about, and I thought, the technical level that these guys have, the pace they play the game at. But in Europe, where we've been good, Colin, the key lesson always, I think, is the same. And this is not just this Rangers team. This is every Rangers team I've seen in Europe since I was a kid. If you treat the ball like a hot potato in Europe, you struggle. Domestically, it's not great, but you know you're going to get the ball back, usually pretty quickly. In Europe, you give the ball away, you might not see it for another 15 minutes.
Yeah, especially against a team like this, with some of the players they've got with the ability to pass the ball kind of through you as well as around you. It's not a good tactic to do. I think with that Leverkusen team as well on Thursday, they had other levels they could have went to as well. I mean, we can talk about us maybe not being as up for it as we should have been, and maybe been a little bit in awe of the task ahead of us. I think had we been a little bit better, they could potentially just have rolled their sleeves up a little bit further and been even better still. I don't see how we could have got much out of the game, and I think the game kind of went as expected. It's the usual though, and the days building up to it, we all started to get our hopes up, and you start to have a dream, don't you? But very quickly into that match in midweek, you saw them, you saw us, and you kind of knew how it was going to go from early doors. It's something to aspire to. Adam's spot on, and if we can ever get to that position with that quality of player all over the pitch, then that's what you would like to be doing, and that's how you want to be playing football in Europe. But he's right to say that had we had them in a one-off game, that would have been interesting for me. Had that a first leg been called off, which it probably should have been, let's be fair.
Undoubtedly.
Then it could have been a totally different game on a neutral venue, a kind of shootout. We would have probably went all out for it, I think, treated it like a second leg after a good home leg at home, the way we kind of approach these knockout games in Europe under Gerrard. And anything could have happened, but 3-1 down, it was just too big a hurdle to come across, I think.
Yeah, as I say, I never really got the impression that Rangers were treating it as anything other than, let's try and win the game on the night, but I don't think that it came across that we were likely to go on and win 3-0, which was a hell of an ask, in all honesty, to win that by 3 clear goals. Anyway, that did lead us back to Ibrox for our first league match behind closed doors. A very strange experience. It is quite eerie to be in. The club have put up a lot of banners, fan mosaics, supporters club flags, etc., etc. Doing their best. Again, I haven't seen it, but from what I hear, they also apparently let I think they let the Reverend Dean Paisley do the songbook in the first half. Good, but it's not the same. It is weird. However, I'm going to maybe throw something at Adam that might be considered, I don't know, a little bit controversial. I don't think it is. It was just my opinion, folks. At the start of the second half, St Mirren came out to play a wee bit, obviously, to try and get back into it. And Rangers, for about 15 minutes, I thought, struggled to get any rhythm together at all. And I was feeling a bit nervous, 1-0. And then, of course, they get the second, they get the third very quickly. We're home and hosed. It's all done. And it was, to me, I wondered if, had there been a crowd in here, and the nerves had kicked in and it had expressed itself in its usual way, would that have had an impact? Because I'm beginning to think in these closed-door games, more often than not, there's obviously shocks, and certainly in England, when at the end of their season, when one team had something to play for and one didn't, that could skew it as well. But generally speaking, from what I've seen in these behind closed-doors matches, and the ones I've watched in Germany, Spain, Italy, England, and now in Scotland, what happens is the team with the best footballers tend to win. And that was kind of what happened yesterday. There wasn't that impact from the crowd, and St Mirren couldn't get the boost that they might have got of, you hear managers talk about, we've got to get the crowd quiet and maybe get them on the backs of the Rangers team at Ibrox. That wasn't an option for them. And what eventually happened was just, to put it simply, class told.
Yeah, I think I completely agree, especially when you look at the timings of it. You would say, if you were Jim Goodman at half-time, you'd say, right, it's only 1-0. We've had a bit of a battering, to be fair. However, first 15 minutes of the second half, try and contain them, make sure they don't get a second goal. And we know what we're like in terms of the crowd. We would start to get a wee bit antsy and nervous, particularly given the amount of 1-0 leads we threw away last year. So I think you're spot on. I think it's really interesting. We've said before, it may do us some favours. It will, I think, particularly at the start of the season where we're still trying to find our feet and we're trying to integrate new boys into the team. I think that will probably help us to play with that little bit of less pressure. But moving forward, I think good Rangers players and good Rangers teams need to play under that pressure to really appreciate what that pressure means, as in what it means to the fans. So I'm happy for us to get a good start and the team to be relatively comfortable in that environment. And if it means that better players win the games, then by theory we should win nearly all the games, so we'll be happy with that.
And obviously we just need to look down to Ayrshire yesterday, Colin, to see that it doesn't always work. It just strikes me as it's a huge psychological factor that we're all so used to, that, as I say, you hear managers talk about it all the time. We need to quiet the crowd down. We need to get them on the back of the... Not just at Rangers, you hear it wherever a smaller club is coming to play a big club. And it's not there anymore. Now, it will have another effect at times, I'm sure, when the crowd would roar the team on, and that won't be there for Rangers. But generally speaking, it's becoming more just like this 11 men versus that 11 men, and the best one wins.
Yeah, so the home advantage thing isn't really an advantage at the minute under this sort of setup. And I was going to mention what you just alluded to, in that we've got a crowd that's able to do two things very, very effectively or ineffectively, however you look at it. We can drive the team on. We can really be a 12-man, so to speak. We saw that against Braga. We've seen it countless times over the years, but we've also got that other side where we do get restless. We do get a little bit frustrated earlier than we probably should do, and we do start to maybe not get fully behind at times. And we've got quite a few players that have come in. We've got players making their Ibrox debuts yesterday, and they're going to make another Ibrox debut though when there's 50,000 fans there, which is going to be completely different, isn't it? And that's probably going to be a learning curve for some of them. They'll come out into that big stadium yesterday and they'll be able to enjoy their football. They've not got that. Maybe that. Can the crowd make a footballer make a mistake? I think they probably can in some instances.
No, of course. I mean, they're human beings.
Their nerves. Yeah, the nerves.
I've never understood why people think that shit, and I've done it, right? So I'm being a hypocrite here. I try not to, but I suppose occasionally frustration boils over. But we all know the guy that turns up at Ibrox and 40 seconds in, the misplaced pass, fucking shite. They're human beings.
Yeah, it's going to make your next pass all the harder to pull off because you've got that last one in the shout in your head, haven't you? So you've got players not having that to worry about just now, and they're able to settle in, especially the ones that are finding their place in the team, getting used to the system and everything else. However, there will be that learning curve to come, hopefully sooner rather than later, when they have to adjust, and I think that's going to be quite fascinating. It'll probably be more fascinating to watch other teams do it because it'll be too nerve-wracking for us to actually enjoy it, for the spectacle it will be for Rangers, but it's something to look forward to when the fans do start coming back in, how players adapt to it and how games and how the temperament and just how the whole mental side of the game changes when that starts to happen, because I would imagine it'll be home fans only for a while. If we do a sort of phased return type thing, I don't see away fans being allowed in. They're going to maximise the home fan, aren't they? So that's a slightly different part to it as well, but it's certainly something to be aware of and pay attention to.
Adam, you felt Rangers maybe slightly tweaked their formation yesterday. Of course, we play a nominal 4-3-3, but with two number 10s, generally speaking, or certainly that's the plan. But yesterday you thought it was more of a traditional 4-2-3-1?
I did. I thought I wasn't quite sure at the start, but certainly from about 5 or 6 minutes in, nominally Aribo was wider on the right and Kent was wider on the left, and Hadji was in that number 10 everybody wants him to be in, behind Morelos. In saying that, the four of them did change about a hell of a lot, which is good. You want that, I think, particularly playing at home, you want that rotation, you want them all moving about so that basically they're too difficult to mark and we can do what we need to in terms of getting goals. I mentioned earlier on Morelos hitting that inside right channel and Aribo coming in side will give us a lot more flexibility. But yeah, and we had I was going to say we had the midfield too further back, but I'm not sure they can get much further back, to be honest. It's interesting because someone on Twitter, I think it's SL Football, posted up a tweet which showed the average positions for the Aberdeen game and the St Mirren game. And obviously one was 4-3-3 and one was 4-2-3-1. In both games, Jack and Kamara are in roughly the same area of the pitch, which is right in the centre circle, but they're both right in the centre circle, as in right on top of each other, which at the game, obviously, they'll change, etc. But I think the main point of that is, on average, throughout the game, they're both hitting basically the same 5 yards of the pitch. And it seemed to be, regardless of whether it was a 4-3-3 or regardless of whether it was a 4-2-3-1, both of them want to sit that little bit deeper. We know that. It was an issue last weekend in terms of us getting bodies forward. However, I didn't think it was that much of an issue yesterday. When you've got those two fullbacks bombing forward, although Barisic is now doing it more than Tav does, but when you've got them bombing forward, you probably do need a bit of a base there. I still don't think you need the two of them sitting quite that in each other's pockets, if you like. But the two of them kind of worked okay, and it gave the front four the platform. But I think the key thing was it was a front four rather than this one up top, two behind them with a free roll, and one kind of following up a little bit, but a little bit deeper. It was a front four, which I think was a lot better. I thought the four of them, their movement was great, but their decision making, I think, was still pretty poor, if I'm being honest. I felt like we got into some really good positions and we had some shots from some really good positions, but either it was they wanted too many touches on the ball, or the final pass let them down, or poor finishing, or great goalkeeping. Combination of them all. You could put some of it to luck, but I don't think you can put all of it to luck. We had 28 attempts at goal. 8 of them were blocked, so I guess that is a positive for us, in that St Mirren are defending well and they're throwing themselves in front of shots. It's better than us putting shots wide, for example, but 8 of them being blocked is quite high. But one thing I found quite startling was, of all of our shots, only one of them was in the 6-yard box, which, if you are a team playing at home, you need to be breaking teams down a lot better. We had 15 in the penalty area and 12 outside the box. I'm a big fan of us shooting more. I think that's great, because if teams are breaking you down, have a shot for the edge of the box, that's brilliant. But only one of those 28 shots on goal coming from inside the 6-yard box. Chances are, if you get more shots on goal inside the 6-yard box, you're going to score, or you're at least going to hit the target. So I think that comes down to approach play. We're all still a little bit we're rushed in our approach play, but we also want to take too many touches as well, which doesn't really seem to marry up. So it does get a little bit confused. I thought they were good, the four of them yesterday. There were some promising signs. We're going to add 2 more players into that front four, I would imagine, over the next coming weeks in terms of Itten and Roof, so they'll bring another dimension to it. But I think we just need to be a wee bit more precise, I think, in our build-up.
The manager said afterwards that he can already see from 3 training sessions that Cedric Itten is going to be a big player for us. That's a quote. But that he didn't really get a chance to show much of it in the game because the game had basically died a wee bit, which I would agree with. Colin, something Adam said is something that I feel, and I suspect a lot of our listeners do, that sometimes we do overplay or try to overplay. They do seem to want an extra touch, beat another man, another pass. And I think that when Rangers are at their best, when those 4 are at their best, maybe exclude Alfie a wee bit from this actually, because he is direct. It is when it's just pass, shot, pass, shot, rather than trying to create this beautiful kind of Wenger Arsenal style goal.
Yeah, the frustrating thing is as well is that they tend to take turns over who it's going to be that takes those extra touches in each game. Yesterday it was Kent. In the past it's been Aribo that's been guilty of it. Hadji maybe not so much, but the other two certainly. And if we can get all three of them kind of zipping the ball between each other and not doing that at the one time, then we saw in pre-season some of the great goals, particularly the one that Uribe scored at Ibrox is one that kind of stands out for me, the type of passing movement and what they're capable of when they actually make the right decision and pass the ball quickly and move, and that's what they can do. In terms of getting the ball into that 6-yard box, I think Cedric Eaton is going to be key for that. That seems to be his sort of battleground. That's where he likes to score his goals. He's got the height, so if we've got what I think is the two best fullbacks in the league and Borna and Tav putting those crosses in, we've finally got a guy that I think will regularly get on the back of them, and we'll see a guy being that sort of predator in the 6-yard box. But looking at the strikers we've got to come in, it's in Roof, Defoe, and even Morelos if he's still there. That's 4 excellent proper goal scorers we're going to have and options we're going to have. I can't think of a team having that sort of options for as long as Morelos is here. It takes me kind of back to Man United and there. Remember the Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez and Berbatov 4 that they had? Yeah. It's different levels. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but that sort of depth up front and that different options you can play in different ways of going for goals, that's kind of what we're going to have for as long as Morelos is here. So I'm looking forward to seeing that changing. To kind of just pop back to the talk about Jack and Kamara as well, if that's okay. I get why we play them both, but I do think it's overkill a little bit, in particularly some of these domestic games. I think they do a lot of work that we don't get the praise for defensively, which allows the wing-backs to do what they need to do. But the problem we've got is that neither of them is a real box-to-box midfielder. We need them to do that dirty stuff, but we also need them to get further up the pitch and actually contribute to the attack. If we had one that did that, I think you wouldn't have half the complaints and half the moans about this midfield that we've got just now. So hopefully we're in the market for this midfielder that we think is kind of last piece of the jigsaw. If it's a true box-to-box player that can do the defensive stuff and get further up and contribute up there as well, I think we'll be in a great place because, like I've just said, attacking-wise, we've got some great options now. I think the defence is in a great place as well at the minute. If we can sort that sort of central midfield area, I think we're in a really, really good place to build on and hopefully have an effective season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the place in midfield that's up for grabs is the one that Kamara's occupying at the moment. Yeah. I think that would be the role that someone would come in, because I think Ryan Jack is first in line, deservedly so, would be first in line for that other role. But also I think he can do more than Kamara in terms of getting forward and scoring goals and passing and whatnot. So I think that would be why I would want him in there. But I do agree that we could do with another player in there. A guy you both mentioned, was Borna Barisic, who I thought was terrific yesterday. Can I just clear something up? I didn't give him man of the match. There, thank you. I gave it to Alfie, and for some reason the stadium announced it as Borna, which is the most heart and hand thing imaginable, in all fairness. But it was Alfie who got the award yesterday, rather brilliantly. They came over to try and explain to me what had happened, and they said, look, even if I said, I don't, if you want, I suppose I could just change my mind if it'll be easier. And they said, no. Plus, we've already told Alfie that he's the man of the match, so we can't take it off when we'll go mental. And I wouldn't want to have told him either. But I think Barisic is such a class act, Adam. I think he's a terrific footballer, an absolute Rolls Royce, as the saying goes.
Yeah, I think he is. He was brilliant. He's not one of those defenders that you really notice as being, and I say defender in the literal sense, I guess, but he's not really one of those that you notice as being poor at anything. He's very, very left-footed, but no fullbacks or no wingers ever really seem to get the better of him. There's never a situation where you think Barisic got absolutely done there. It just never really seems to happen. He's almost like Papac at the back. He just gets about, does his work and gets about, and that's fine. But then he's just unleashed further forward as well. But again, I can't really think of scenarios where Barisic was really caught out of position there, the same way that sometimes we do on the other side with Tavernier. It just seems to be measured as a kind of complete fullback that is just great at every aspect of his game, which I think is brilliant. His delivery is brilliant. I still think, and there was a few of them, I still think he needs to mix up his delivery a little bit. There was a period last year where he was varying it quite a bit in December. There was cutbacks for Kent at Parkhead, and I think there might have been another Kent goal, Hibs, the 3-0 game in December. He cuts the ball back and it kind of gets the opposition thinking they're expecting a ball into the box to clear, and he cuts it back. I'd like to see a lot more of that. It tends to be he'll just get his head down and hammer a ball into the box sometimes, which works quite well away in Europe, I guess, when Morelos is on the end of them. But in these type of games, going into Morelos, it's not really great. However, on the flip side of that, having Cedric Itten in there, I'm sure is a match made in heaven in that sense. It's a bit more agricultural, I think, than we're probably used to. But I think that will showcase the strengths of both of them. But I thought he was very good again yesterday. Very rarely has a bad game. But yeah, no complaints at all.
Yeah, I think it's been a pretty good week for us so far. Colin, we head on to Wednesday night to play St Johnstone at Ibrox again. You know, yesterday was a routine victory. We're kind of expecting the same again here, especially because far too early in the season to read anything into it, right? And Rugby Park, as we know to our cost, a tough place to go, etc., etc. But in the last few seasons, one of the kind of regrets / concerns about the Rangers team is that we haven't taken advantage. You can't really ask for much more to cement a lead than another home game, and against a team who, with all due respect, we should be putting away fairly straightforwardly.
I totally agree. We've found ourselves 2 points ahead at this very, very early stage, and nobody's getting excited about it. But this could potentially be one of these seasons where there's not a lot of drop points out with the games against each other. So that early advantage could become key at some point. We just don't know. There's also the factor we spoke about earlier with the empty stadiums, which could lead to maybe some more anomalies and more results like we saw at Rugby Park on Sunday. So it's just too early to say. But a home tie against St Johnstone, who had their match cancelled at the weekend against Aberdeen, I've only played one pre-season friendly because their second one was cancelled due to COVID results as well. Means they've played 2 games, I think, since March. So they may well have had plenty of time on the training pitch, but they're not going to be match fit to any sort of standard up to what we are. So this is a real good opportunity for us to go out on Wednesday night, score a good few goals, get some more players on the pitch as well, and put out a little bit of a marker. We've got Defoe back in the team, I think, for Wednesday as well, or back in the reckoning anyway, as well as hopefully some more from Eaton, and hopefully at the start of Roof as well. So Wednesday's got a lot to look forward to in terms of another home tie, another chance to watch RTV, and hopefully continue that lead in the league.
Would you change the side around in any way, Adam?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? I would probably want to get Roof more involved than Itten. I know that sounds a bit weird, but given that Roof's probably a wee bit away in terms of fitness, but I'd like to see something a little bit different in that 3 behind the striker. If Morelos is here, I think he scored those 2 goals and he needs to play, so Itten might need to cool his heels a little bit, but I wouldn't mind seeing Roof coming in. Maybe for Aribo or a little bit of a jig about and resting players. I would like that just personally in terms of just getting a look at him. I'm interested, David, on this whole Morelos piece. I wonder what both your guys' thoughts on it, because I think we thought he was going quite quickly as a fan base. I don't think many expected him to play on Sunday, and probably didn't expect him to be here, if we're that honest, given that it was a week ago that we got the 2 strikers in. But it's going to be quite interesting, because if he doesn't go, there's obviously a financial impact of it, given the amount of money that we've put out on those 2 strikers. But in terms of keeping all these players happy as well, Morelos stays, he'll want to play, but we've spent quite a bit of money on them. What's your thoughts on that? I think sometimes it's great business in theory to get the 2 strikers in the door before the 1 striker leaves, but if that striker then doesn't leave, it becomes a bit of it's a nice issue to have in terms of the player, but if those players are coming in with a sale being mooted for someone going out and then that sale doesn't happen, it's interesting. I'm not quite sure how that will play out. I wonder what your thoughts are.
I hate to do a comparison thing to that lot across the road, but one thing they've done recently quite well is guys who they've signed and you've forgotten about, because obviously, none of us follow them particularly closely, but then a couple of years later they become almost key players for them. I'm thinking the likes of Christie in that particular thing. I don't mind a bit of succession planning, and Itten would fall into that category. Roof will be playing. He just, he costs too much money. He's 27. He's going to be someone who features. Against that, though, if Alfie's banging them in and we're playing well and we're winning, you don't change a winning team. If he goes, fair enough. I think as well, you also know that he is going to go at some point. So it might not be this window. It might be the window after. It might be next summer. But eventually you're going to have life without him. And I like having a guy there in, settled, ready to go. Colin?
Yeah, I mean, the manager spoke yesterday and he was asked about the strength of depth, particularly in the forwards department, and he said, well, we're Rangers. We should have strength of depth. We should have quality players looking to come in and make a difference when they go off the bench or challenge for places. So if we can have these players and financially it makes sense, I like to think the board and the guys in charge of that stuff just now wouldn't be making that sort of striker gamble if there was a chance Morelos wasn't sold, it was going to lead to any issues. There must be, we've not released actual fees, we've not released whether it's instalments or any of that sort of stuff when we're paying it. So if Morelos is going to stay and it's not going to cause any issues, I think it's a good problem to have, and it's a problem that Gerrard not really had to deal with in terms of managing Morelos in that regard, and he might have to sit him down and have a proper conversation with him about it, talk about the fact that we've got the 5 sub rule now and we are able to rotate the team a little bit more, give more people game time, keep people fresh for. It'll be slightly different this year because of the qualifyings, only one-legged games and stuff like that, but we play 55, 60 games a season sometimes, so we should have this amount of players in those areas that can come in and make a difference. And if we've got 4 great strikers or 4 very good strikers that can score goals for us and spread that load around the team and not relying on Alfie to score 30 goals before Christmas and then dry up and left with nothing afterwards, it can only be advantageous to us. As long as it just all makes sense financially and we've not kind of shot ourselves in the foot in that regard, that would be my only sort of caveat.
I guess on the flip side as well, David, we could, if for whatever reason that move doesn't go through or we don't get the value that we want, I suppose we could start going down the pecking order and maybe looking at guys like Kamara, and potentially Jones, Murphy, these type of guys that we might have kept about to get 5 or 10 appearances here and there. But if we've got Morelos coming in, they're staying in, there's no chance they're going to get a game, we might start to look to try and not raise funds as if it's a admin 2 scenario, but we might try and balance the books a little bit better and get some of those guys out that aren't really going to hugely impact the team in a way, so we might be able to cover it in other ways.
I did enjoy, somebody sent me something from and thank you to the listener who sent me this. It's from the Celtic blog. Nothing about Celtic in it that I could see, but he sent me a piece where basically, because the Celtic blogosphere, as you know, is somewhat obsessed with admin for Rangers that were going bust. Obviously, last week when Rangers spent £8 million, I think even the most blinkered of Celtic supporters was like, hang on a minute, you keep telling us this and it keeps being pish. Because we seem to do all right for a team that's going into admin every 3 days, don't we, when it comes to bringing in players. It really did tick the box of the best conspiracy theories, because with a really good conspiracy theory, any evidence can be used to back you up. So, for instance, Rangers spend money, they're going bust, they don't have that money to spend. Rangers don't spend any money. They've no money. They're going bust. And in this piece, it actually said, Rangers will go bust. We just can't tell you when or how. So, it's beyond ridiculous. And that's the level that they're at. It's something that's given out by their higher-ups, the people that they report into. Don't get me wrong. It's a myth that they like to peddle, and whatever benefit it grants them, I don't know. Whether they think it'll put people off investing in us or whatever, I have no idea. But it's bullshit. It is. It's really that simple.
I think it all comes back down to my favourite memories of a Rangers fan is winning the league at Parkhead. It's that game against Parma. It's going to Manchester. Their happiest day supporting their club is the day we went into admin, and that's the difference between the two sets, unfortunately.
Yes, it is, but I think we're in a decent place. Although we're Rangers fans, should it not go our way on Wednesday night, we will all get our pitchforks, set fire to it, and head up Edmiston Drive. Can I have a prediction for Wednesday night, first of all, Adam?
Jack and Kamara in each other's pockets in the centre circle, plus 4-0 Rangers.
Oof, he's going for it. Colin?
Yeah, I think we'll score a good few goals. I'll go one the better. I'm going to say we'll go for 2 better than the weekend. They go for 5-0.
Oof, you two are. I'm going for a more conservative 3-1. I think that we will win it, but St Johnstone can be troublesome opponents on occasion. But hopefully you two are closer to the truth than I am. Right, folks, that will do us for today. I'd like to thank Adam.
Cheers, David, and congratulations again on the 10 years. The amount of work that you put into the site is unmatched, to be honest. I think you should be very proud of it, and I think on behalf of all the podders, thank you for everything that you do for us as well.
Oh, thanks, mate. And thank you to Colin.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not going to crawl like Adam did, so just cheers, mate.
Yeah, sensible. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank, first of all, everyone who listens to this show, everyone who's stuck with us. I remember going to talk to Mike and Paul, who are the executives, that I thank every week on here, when we were put into Division 3. And I said to them, look, do you still want this show? And they went, of course. And I said, well, can't be many podcasts dedicated to Scottish Division 3 club. And they were like, what, your fans are going to walk away all of a sudden? And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. And it didn't. And it hasn't been an easy decade. In fact, it's been the worst decade that any Rangers fan could go through. But we did get through it, and we got through it together as a community on here and on our Patreon site. If you want to go over there and sign up, it's patreon.com/Heart and Hand. And I think that through these trials, as bitter and horrible as they were, we came through it a much tighter and much closer community. And sure, we fight because we're a family, and families do fight and families do argue. But when anybody else threatens, we put our backs to each other's back and go, right, mon then. That's what the Rangers support has done. That's what we at Heart and Hand want to do. I do believe we're on the verge of some massive success. And when it comes, every single one of us will deserve it, because we've endured and we've come through it. And now I think that the building blocks have been put in place. It will make every single moment of glory taste all the sweeter. Every single one of you have earned it. I am eternally proud to be a Rangers fan. And here's to the next 10 years. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.
Rangers 1, St Mirren 0. Thanks to our match sponsor today, Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, and to our match ball sponsor, G4 Claims.
Yeah, I've done a few live shows with Heart and Hand, Clive. They're the great boys, massive fans of the club, and they'll be delighted that they get a wee plug.
Hey, I've been on it too.